views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
And hello, everyone, and welcome to Open, the one and only show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. I'm your host, Daren Jaime, and today we'll update you what's happening in and around our borough as well as across New York City. Coming up on today's show, we'll talk about CUNY, the comeback plan. It's assisting students who suffer financial hardships due to the coronavirus pandemic. We'll talk about forgiveness of debt. Also, afterwards, we'll discuss the importance of good health literacy and how to personally navigate the medical system. And then we're going to meet one person who's going to talk about their organization and how they're helping women through trauma. We'll give you more details on that in the show. And then finally, we'll sit down with the representative from CityMeals on Wheels on how they're providing home-delivered meals and companionship to homebound elderly New Yorkers. So stay tuned because all this and much more is heading your way. Right now, we're officially open. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Open. I am Daren Jaime, and today is Wednesday, August 25th, and you're watching Open, a live and interactive program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to your TV set. We encourage you to stay connected to us on our social media platforms, as you can reach us at bronxnet.org, and then also on our social media platforms at BronxNet TV. We also want to give a special welcome to our viewers who are watching on MNN, the Manhattan Neighborhood Network, as Open is being broadcast live simultaneously on the MNN channel. Well, a lot has been going on through the course of the past week. We can't take you through everything, but we can take you through a couple of things with our Bronx updates. We start off with city news. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio recently announced that New Yorkers will need to show proof of a coronavirus vaccination when heading to restaurants, gyms, and indoor indoor activities. Now, the requirements come as city officials are trying to decrease the spread of the more contagious Delta variant by encouraging more New Yorkers to get vaccinated against the virus. Now, the vaccine mandate will require customers to bring their physical vaccine card or show photo of it through the New York City COVID Safe app or the state Excelsior Pass. Inspections and enforcement surrounding the restrictions will begin after the grace period on September the 13th. Small businesses will face a fine of $1,000 or more if they're found not complying with the rules after that date. Now, officials will also be on the lookout for customers who are actually using fake vaccine cards. An offense can carry up to a 7-year prison sentence. Well, in political news, most families in the United States receive their first monthly payments of the child tax credit, which is a major component of President Joe Biden's American Rescue Plan. Currently set to expire after 2021, the president hopes to extend this new child care tax credit after the end of this year. Our BronxNet reporter, Tomas Dominguez, has more details.
Last month, a majority of families across the United States received the first round of monthly payments under the new enhanced child tax credit for 2021. A major component of President Joe Biden's American Rescue Plan, the president signed the act into law earlier this year after the bill just narrowly passed in both houses of Congress. Jeffrey Almanzar, senior tax partner for the Commission ENT-LCC, spoke with BronxNet correspondent Sanjay Lopez to discuss this enhanced child tax credit in greater detail.
So for children that are under 5 years old, you should be receiving about $300 a month. And then for children above that age, you should receive about $250 a month. So if you really do the calculation, people would be receiving a total of $1,800 a month for kids. $1,800 for the whole rest of the year, which is 6 months. So that'll be about 1,800. And then for kids above the 5 years of age, would be the 250 times the 6 months. So that'll be about 1,500.
According to the Biden administration, the amount of benefits families can receive depends on income level. Those eligible for the full child tax credit include single parents making less than $112,500 a year and married couples with children making less than $150,000 a year. According to Columbia University's Center on Poverty and Social Policy, this enhanced child tax credit would also help significantly reduce the child poverty rate in the United States by approximately 50%. Set to expire at the end of this year, President Biden and a majority of Democrats in Congress want to continue this enhanced child tax credit after 2021. Currently, Senate Democrats hope to extend it until at least 2025. In the future human infrastructure bill they hope to pass later this year.
We cannot and should not be the party that cuts child poverty in half only until 2025. We should and must be the party that champions a permanent breakthrough against child poverty.
If you and/or your family filed taxes in the last 2 years or signed up with the federal non-filer tool and meet income eligibility, your family should automatically get monthly payments. If you want to see if you and your family meet the eligibility standards for monthly payments, visit www.whitehouse.gov, Child Tax Credit, Sign Up. Reporting for BronxNet, Tomas Dominguez.
And thank you, Tomas. In recent news, a 7.2 magnitude earthquake violently shook Haiti on August the 14th, killing over 2,000 people. Now, this latest earthquake, more powerful than the devastating quake in 2010, which was a 7.0 magnitude quake. The Biden administration, the United Nations, and private relief agencies operating in Haiti promised urgent help. Now, here locally, the New York City Police Department is joining the effort, sending help to Haiti. Now, the NYPD says all precincts will be collecting medical supplies, personal hygiene items, non-perishable food, bottled water, and clothing for those in need. Also in community news, the Bronx farm is being targeted by vandals, leaving local farmers committed to stepping up their partnership with the NYPD to help continue their mission. Our BronxNet reporter Arlene Makoko brings us the story.
These cut power lines serve as yet another example, say farmers, that they are a target for vandals aimed at disrupting the running of La Finca del Sur, nearly 3 acres of land here located at 138th Street, just south of the Grand Concourse.
It was discovered that someone pulled out the battery cell for our solar panel.
The wires located behind this casita are on property owned by the city towards the entrance and then divided here by the Metro North on one side and the Department of Transportation on the other. And it's all now managed by the farmers.
That was used for farmers to help charge their phones, to plug in our weed whacker or electric tools if we needed to.
So it seems like the panels are still there? Right, but the control board was taken.
Unfortunately, this is not the first time, shared Nancy Ortiz-Surin, who is a core farmer as well as co-founder of La Finca del Sur that opened in 2009 and that most recently hosted this concert sponsored by the Pregones Theater featuring these bomba dancers.
We have been the subject of break-ins, continuous break-ins to our shipping containers and equipment here on the farm since the fall of 2019. So this actually started pre-pandemic.
In the last month, there's been an uptick, though.
Weed whackers and a couple of other things were taken.
Now an active police investigation, the farmers here want to continue with their mission outlined from the start, and that is to see the community flourish, something they do by donating fresh produce, hosting free concerts, and building partnerships with the Department of Education, allowing students from local schools to tour the farm. For more information on the farm, including events at La Finca del Sur, you can go to their Facebook page. For BronxNet, this is Arlene Makoko.
Thank you, Arlene. And that's all the time we have for our Bronx updates, but we do have more show coming up. We urge you don't go anywhere. Oprah continues following this break. welcome back to the show. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused hardship for many New Yorkers, and students were among those most impacted. Now, in response, CUNY's largest student debt forgiveness plans of its kind to help at least 50,000 students overcome debts from tuition and fees they may have accumulated through the pandemic. And joining us now to tell us more details is Bronx Community College's president, Dr. Thomas A. Isekenegbe, and also Vice President for Student Success, Dr. Irene Delgado. And welcome both to the show.
Hi, thank you, Daren, for having us. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, Dr. Isekenegbe, and glad to have you, and also glad to have Irene sharing with us as well.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Great. And, I'll start off with you, Mr. President. You'll talk first, Dr. Isekenegbe, because, as we're preparing ourselves really to re-enter back into the educational environment as fall semester is creeping upon us, you got to be excited on one hand for a new semester, but then at the same time, we also find ourselves dealing with the new set of challenges with this COVID-19 pandemic. So talk to us a little bit about the comeback plan.
Actually, I am excited and elated about the plan. The comeback plan, as announced by our Governor Cuomo, and our Chancellor, is basically a $125 million debt relief program for at least 50,000 students. I think you said it earlier on. But I need you to note, is the largest debt forgiveness program of its kind in higher ed. So go figure that you can't really beat that. The goal here really is to allow for the students to come back and pursue their educational and career goals. So during the pandemic, a lot of students suffered financial hardship. So what CUNY is doing here is to really say, we understand, we realize what you're going through. Our Chancellor, the fellow Martos Rodriguez, basically announced this plan about 2 weeks ago. And again, we're all elated and excited about it. On our campus, it's going to affect, it's from phase one of it. I'll let Irene Delgado talk more about it later. It's affecting about already 8,704 students for a total relief of about $6 million.
And Dr. Delgado, share with us a little bit about the eligibility, because, you got this money out there. Students are saying, I would love to have this debt wiped clean. How do you go about the eligibility process?
Well, it's actually being done in 2 steps, and we are really excited about this because we all know that education is what makes students and their families move from one economic rung upward to the next economic rung. And part of that, though, is we need to give them the foundation that they need. Students who incurred debt between spring of 2020, we all remember, we will never forget March of 2020. So from spring of 2020 to spring of 21, if a student incurred debt at that time and they had filled out a FAFSA, and to remind everybody, a FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. If they got aid or qualified for aid and still had a balance on the books, that is automatically being wiped out. Student does not have to do anything. We have gone into the system, and when I say we, there are a bunch of people in another room furiously working at the computer, doing some kind of computer program, and it is automatically done for the student. So that's for part of our students. Then the question then becomes, well, what if I, as a student, didn't fill out a FAFSA, or I didn't qualify for aid, or I might have been an international student? Because at Bronx Community College, we have a healthy international student population. CUNY has come up with what is called a hardship application. We are waiting to distribute that. Hopefully we will get that in the next 2 weeks. And what it will do is allow students to apply for the same benefit, saying, this is the hardship that I incurred. There was a death in my family. I lost my job. We have fallen in arrears with our Con Ed bill or with our rent. And if they can give us some documentation, we will automatically lift that hold. Now, that also comes with that we want to make sure that they will fill out a FAFSA for this coming year, because we want them to be registered and we want them to be able to get all the benefits, grants, scholarships, and aid that might be out there. So it's actually very simple. The other advantage of this program and things that are happening automatically that some students might not know about is our graduates. Our graduates, let me rephrase that. If you graduated between spring of 2020 and spring of 21, and you have debt on the books, you don't have to have you should not, let me try that again. You did not have to fill out a FAFSA. It is okay. That debt has been wiped clean. Come down, order your diploma, and we will get that in your hot little hands in 6 to 8 weeks, because it has to be printed. Transcripts are available to all our students who might have had debt, that those bursar holds have been lifted. We are really trying to make sure that our students have the opportunity to come back to school, graduate, go on to your four-year college, or take the certification or the associate's degree that you needed to get that leg up in the job market. It is so important to us. So we have made this as easy as possible.
Dr. Isekenegbe, let me bring it back and talk about this, because when you talk about having this kind of forgiveness, this is major. As you said, none of a kind before. You've been doing this for a while. What does this actually mean in the life of a student to be able to be afforded the opportunity to actually have their debt forgiven? I mean, some people take it for granted, but there's some really huge benefits. Can you share with us a little bit about that?
I think it means a lot to the students. Can you imagine if you wake up when this announcement was made, you were owing Bronx Community College $6,000 or $3,000. All of a sudden, that money is disappeared from the books, which means you can come back and start afresh. In fact, already we're getting calls from students that couldn't register this fall because of the debt forgiveness. They're coming back to school. So it's a really big deal, as Irene and others would say. It's really a big deal. And at the end of the day, it's going to impact not just Bronx Community College, it's going to impact our city and our nation, because we're giving students like the world come back and finish the journey that they already started. I think I'm really excited with this. I want to say thank you to our Chancellor for pursuing this. I want to say thank you to our Board of Trustees and the Governor for really making this possible for the 50,000 plus students that will benefit from it.
Yeah, and it's got to be huge. I mean, if you think about it, if you graduate with debt, then the possibility now that to be able to graduate debt-free really gives a person a fresh start as they begin to enter into the work world if they haven't already begun their adjustment into the career phase. President Isekenegbe, share with us right now where we are in terms of coming back, because there are some students who are really concerned with the Delta variant and all of these things out there about the hybrid. And so they say, listen, I may not want to come to class. So what are the options that are available right now as we approach the new semester?
Thanks for your question. Really, we have all of the options available. Irene will remember my term. We have like a cafeteria option. For students that want to do online, they have that option. For students that want to do the hybrid, they want to take some classes online, come in person campus, they have that option. And for students that want to come fully on campus, they have that option too. But wherever we do, we're following strict public health guidelines. The Chancellor just sent out a memo, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, which says basically if you come in on campus, in buildings, outside buildings, everybody must be fully masked at any point in time. Our staff are back. Irene, I think you may want to talk about that. Some of our staff are back on campus, and you talk about what's going on in the offices.
Absolutely. Well, during the pandemic, some of our offices were still open during the whole time. For example, our early child care center was open all throughout COVID, adhering to very strict safety and health protocols. But that was before. Let's talk about now. Now we are coming back in a staggered format. So 100% of the staff will be here, but 50% of the time. So we're doing a dual modality. Sometimes we're at home, sometimes we're at work. You can't tell, but I'm really in my office today. But as a vice president, I have to come here all the time, and that's quite all right. For our students, to mimic what the president was saying, it really is a cafeteria style in terms of, you want shrimp, you want tofu, or do you want some steak? We have some students who really are all about coming back to campus. They miss seeing their friends. They miss that engagement. They want to revive their clubs. They want to be involved in student government. And that face-to-face, person-to-person contact is so important. There are other people who have found the advantages of being online, that it gives them much more flexibility in terms of their time. They don't have to commute. They don't have to worry about parking. Their time is much more of their own. Then we have other students who prefer a combination of both, that for them, part of the time being able to work from home and study from home is great, but they want that ability to go to our library, to go to our labs, to work hands-on with a group of students. We are providing that as well. But that is all wrapped in the bow of everyone has to wear a mask. Doesn't matter what your status is in terms of vaccination or if you're getting tested every week, everyone is wearing a mask all the time. Students need to be vaccinated, and if they are not choosing to be vaccinated, which of course I encourage everyone to be vaccinated, we are testing every week students, and they have to provide us a negative COVID test that we are doing on campus for free, and we upload the results for the students. We are making this as seamless as possible for our students. So in that way, everybody feels safe, and not just feel safe, they are safe.
But again, it also applies to faculty and staff. All faculty and staff are encouraged to get vaccinated, and you can upload your vaccine information into CUNY First, which basically then you get a Vax Pass that allows you to come to campus uninterrupted. But should you decide that you don't want to get vaccinated, same thing Dr. Delgado was talking about, you have to do the test weekly and show the result before you can come on campus. So you see what we're telling you earlier on, whatever we're doing, we want to follow strict public health guidelines to keep everybody safe on our campus.
Yeah, it's a lot of work that goes into this. And I know that you've been doing work behind the scenes, and really we're gearing up right now for the forefront where students are really coming back to campus, and then those who are doing hybrid. Share with us about your staff, Dr. Isekenegbe, before we go. I know you got to be proud of them, because navigating through a pandemic has not been the easiest thing.
Listen, I will go to war or any battle any day with the people that I have at Bronx Community College, from my cabinet to our faculty, to our public safety guys, the people that work in the account office, our PPS guys, the guys that keep our building safe. Listen, we have a wonderful staff here that are truly committed to our institution. Remember March last year, we had on 1 week's notice to switch from in-person to online. The faculty came, did what they needed to do to make the transition. We did that again in the summer and in the fall. Even coming back this fall again, there are people that are making the transition from just strictly in-person to the hybrid mode. I can't give enough kudos and enough credit to the faculty and the people on our campus here. Even folks that work in student services, we have what they call virtual advising, virtual financial aid office, people that have used the technology to really enhance what we do with our students. So to all of our faculty staff, I want to say thank you for what you do. And I know we're going to do more, and we're going to be a better institution from there, learning from our experiences from this period.
Yeah. Dr. Isekenegbe, Dr. Delgado, thank you so much for joining us here on the show. And again, congratulations, that students will be able to receive financial forgiveness. Certain students will be able to receive financial forgiveness coming out of this last semester, or I should say this last calendar year in school. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
All righty.
Wonderful day.
Hey, you too. And for more information, we encourage you, don't forget to visit the BCC website at bcc.edu. Listen, we got more show coming up. Don't go anywhere. Open continues coming up right after this. And welcome back to the show. According to the United States Department of Health and Human Services, only about 12% of the population has good health literacy. Now, this means about 88% of adults may lack the skills to manage their health and reduce their risk of disease. Taking care of our health is part of everyday life, not just when we visit the doctor, the clinic, or a hospital, but health literacy can help us prevent health problems and protect our health, as well as better manage those problems and unexpected situations that may happen. And joining us now to share more details is the attending neurologist at Montefiore Medical Center and assistant professor at Neurology at Albert Einstein College of Medicine, Kathryn F. Kirchoff. And we thank you, Kathryn, for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today.
You know, when we have the conversation about health literacy, I think sometimes the definition goes astray. So let's first educate our viewers a little bit on health literacy and how it actually affects each and every one of us.
Yeah, so my goal today is to help people to learn better how to navigate the health system. So as we know, things have become increasingly complex with electronic medical records and with virtual visits now, especially during the time of COVID, as well as how to interface with the pharmacy and with multiple specialists as well as primary care. So I think it's very important for people to be facile in how to manage and navigate their own health.
Yeah. Why is it such an issue for us to be able to be health literate, if you will? Because when it comes to the fact of going to doctors, many of us go to doctors, we have visits, we know these things, but when it comes to health literacy, sometimes we just fall short.
Yes, well, I think it's something that they really don't teach in school. I really think it's sort of, and I think it's so critical for people to learn this, because I believe that knowing how to navigate health will help people have better outcomes and hopefully prevent the long-term sequelae of chronic medical conditions such as hypertension and diabetes, if they can advocate for themselves earlier on in the course of the disease to have consistent care and that long-term follow-up.
Yeah. And so as you're walking people through this and helping people become more literate, what is it that they should know?
Well, I think the first thing that's important is while you're well, that's the time to establish care with a primary care doctor. You don't want to wait until you become sick to find a primary care doctor, because it really starts with prevention. So if you have a primary care doctor, you can start doing yearly physicals to be screened for conditions such as hypertension, diabetes, sleep apnea, in order to get started on treatment early to prevent complications such as heart disease and stroke. You can also discuss with your doctor your family history of things such as coronary artery disease and cancer, so that you can start the general age-appropriate cancer screening, such as mammograms at age 40 and colon cancer screening at age 45, for example. And you can also talk about your particular own personal health risks, and they may tailor your screening to your own family or personal medical history.
A lot of times we deal with prescription medications, and we know that that can be a challenge. Just keeping up with them, knowing the names of them, knowing when to administer them, refills, the whole 9 yards. That can be a huge mountain for so many people, and especially if you're just entering into the fact of having prescriptions. Talk to us a little bit about prescription medications and how to navigate that.
It can be a real challenge to manage prescription medications. So many medications sound the same or have two names. In my particular specialty, I care for stroke patients, and sometimes there may be issues with vision impairment and reading and language after a stroke. And so reading a pill bottle can be a real challenge. So I think there's a few important steps initially to take. So familiarizing yourself with how to read a pill bottle label. I think take a moment to look at your pill bottles, and you'll see that there's the pharmacy name on the top, the prescribing doctor, the medication with the instructions about how to take the medication, and whether or not there are refills left. So if you see that it's time for you to get a refill, meaning it may say 0 refills left or no refills remaining, you would want to make sure that you're calling the doctor who originally prescribed the medication, and that you're specifying which pharmacy you would like them to send it to. Oftentimes people ask us for a refill, and we put the refill through the computer, but the computer may default to a pharmacy that was used previously. It may not be the one that the patient is actually planning to go and pick up the medications from. So there may be a disconnect, as the medication may not be available when they go to the pharmacy. So understanding when it's time to just call your pharmacy if you have refills remaining, or when it's time to actually call your physician because there are no more refills remaining and they need to rewrite the prescription, is an important thing to understand.
Yeah. So Kathryn, what do we do now for a person that's watching right now saying, listen, I need help. This is all new to me. I really want to try to learn how to navigate this. What do I do?
Well, I think asking questions is a good place to start. So that's why having that, primary care physician is there. A big question people have right now, of course, is whether, they can receive vaccinations. And of course, talking about COVID vaccinations is a big issue right now, but there are other important vaccinations that adults should have depending on their age, such as the pneumonia vaccination, the shingles vaccination. So asking those questions when you're going for your physical, and I think that's very helpful. I think it's important to understand that while your doctor may have an electronic medical record, it may not communicate with other of your medical care team's electronic medical records, for example, if they're in a different practice or at a different institution. So asking for your medication list to be printed, carrying your medication bottles to each visit can be helpful to clarify any discrepancies. Asking for any important lab results or records to be printed for you so that you can carry them to the other physicians that you receive care from in order to make sure everybody's in the loop. And we don't want to depend on the computer if it may not be communicating between doctors.
Yeah. And so when I think about this, I think about myself and I say, wow, I remember when I was first introduced in the patient portal, and I was like, oh my God, more, I got to do this, really? But I did find it to be very helpful at the end. But I want to go back to my original thought of, oh my God, I got to do this, patient portal, and the many other people who look at it and kind of like ignore it or say, this can wait. Give some people some encouragement or some advice as to tell them why something as simple as a patient portal might be very, very advantageous to them.
Yes, it's a great point. So I've been practicing here at Montefiore in the Bronx for 11 years now, and I've been really impressed with how well our patients here have accepted the portal and have started to use the portal to communicate during COVID. It's very helpful for patients because they can send a message sort of like an email through the portal to reach us directly rather than having to go through a phone tree, which I think is a huge benefit. They can request refills electronically. They can access their own records and their own lab results so they can communicate those to their other parts of their medical team. So I think there's a lot of benefits. It is a little bit of a hurdle for people who may not have been very familiar with computers beforehand, but if you can use an email or operate a smartphone, I think most people do very well. We also encourage our patients here, who are mostly elderly, to enlist a grandchild or a neighbor who's young and technically savvy to help.
And so enlisting that help, enlisting a young person can actually be quite advantageous. What do you find to be some of the biggest challenges that we have for people wanting to become more health literate?
I think that right now we're dealing with a time period where people don't know exactly how to interpret the large amount of information that's out there on the internet. How do you, decipher quality information from information that may be false? And I think that's where having a trusted primary care doctor can be helpful. Also, using websites of trusted institutions such as hospitals, academic institutions, journals that are peer reviewed. So making sure that you're getting your information from reputable sources, asking questions. I always encourage patients to not wait until the next visit if they have a question, but to call and ask. For example, sometimes patients may experience a side effect of a medication, or a medication may be too expensive. And it's always best to sort of call and ask before stopping the medication on your own, because sometimes we can help and provide some more information or provide an alternative. So just keep asking questions, keep the lines of communication open with your doctor, and try to seek out those reliable sources if you're looking for information on the internet.
Yeah. What questions are you getting the most these days, given the fact that we're in the midst of this pandemic? I'm sure there's a pretty common threshold of questions that you get.
I think the main questions are revolving around vaccinations and the significant benefits in reducing the risk for serious illness and hospitalization. A question I wish people would ask more often is, as we mentioned earlier, what are my age-appropriate cancer screenings? Now, we have a lot of urgent care centers and clinics around the area, and they're increasing in number. And they're a good alternative for when your doctor's office is closed, or you have an illness, off hours, or you can't be fit in for the day. But we don't want to rely on them for our ongoing care, because those sort of more longitudinal health maintenance issues may not be addressed. So kind of, ensuring that you are not losing sight of the important preventative care while we're in the midst of this pandemic, I think is very important.
Yeah. And so for people who really want to get more information and get dialed into how, we need a tutorial, we need to learn how to navigate this, what can they do?
Okay, well, I think first step would be when you see your doctor next time, they usually will give you some information, a tutorial that they print out about how to log on to the portal. I think that's the first step. You can, try to send a message through to your doctor if you have a question. Basically, you can ask your pharmacist as well. Pharmacists are wonderful resources. You can ask them to explain to you what they're seeing on the pill bottle and kind of the process of when they should contact the pharmacist versus the physician. And I wanted to add one other important point, because we do see this, people get sick unexpectedly, and sometimes we may need to speak with a family member or a healthcare proxy for the patient. So I think it's a good idea now, while you're well, to figure out who your next of kin would be, who would speak on your behalf, ensure that, that's been established. And if it's somebody other than, for example, if your spouse would legally be a next of kin for you, but if you prefer to have someone else be your healthcare proxy, you would want to appoint that. And that's something that you can do as well during a routine visit. You can always appoint a healthcare proxy and talk with your doctor about sort of your overall goals of care in the instance of illness. So I think having those conversations when you're well is a good way to get started on your health literacy, so that you're not in an emergency situation when you become ill.
Well, thank you, Kathryn. A lot of information to be able to digest, and hopefully people will become more active in their day-to-day health. I want to tell you, we've been talking to Kathryn Kirchoff, who is the attending neurologist at Montefiore Medical Center and assistant professor of neurology at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine. Now, for more information, we encourage you to go to the website at montefiore.org. Stay with us. We got more show coming up. Open continues right after this. And welcome back. Beauty from the Ashes is a consulting company helping mothers and daughters who are coming out of domestic violence, incarceration, shelters, or foster care. Our next guest is using her business skills to enhance confidence in these women and empower them to start their own cosmetics business as a means to self-sufficiency. Joining us to tell us more details is the founder of Beauty from Their Ashes, Liliana Maria. And we thank you so much, Liliana, for being with us.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here today.
Yeah, I think the best way that we can talk about, your organization is you're taking trauma and really turning it into triumph in the life of these women. Talk to us about how you're helping women navigate through this trauma.
There is so much stigma on women who are coming out of either the foster care system, re-entry from incarceration, and a variety of other situations that through no fault of their own have happened in their life. And it really makes them feel inadequate, it makes them feel unworthy. And so the main focus of this is really to, bring them to a sense of spirituality where they become who God created them to be through love and hope and showing them their worth.
But when you talk about showing women their worth, you show them worth through beauty, through cosmetics, and also really getting them an entrepreneurial effort. Getting Absolutely. Them in their own business. Talk to us about the entrepreneurial effort, about what it means for a woman to really get their own start independently.
See, for me, I went through some situations also, and I had to start from the bottom also and build myself back up. And I noticed that a lot of doors were closing. And someone said to me, well, why don't you do one of these multi-level marketing things? And I said, I will never do that. Not my thing. It's not going to work. But I tried it. And through doing that is where the idea for this was born. So what we're doing now is we're going to brand our own cosmetics And we're going to only hire women who've been through trauma, been through incarceration, and provide jobs for them. It should be about 7 women coming in October if everything goes according to schedule. And when a woman is working, when she's independent, she's away from her abuser or whatever led her to her situation, she's empowered. And that's what this is created to do.
How much of it is a clearing of the mind, given the fact that you know that these women are dealing with trauma and abuse, and now to have something that really takes their mind off of that, which is their own business?
It clears the mind a lot because they have something that they're focused on, and they're shedding those labels that everyone had on them, whether it's convict or victim. They're shedding those and they're looking, wow, I'm an entrepreneur. And being busy, they say that idle hands are the devil's workshop, and it's true. If you're busy, you don't have time to focus on your past. You're just looking forward to your future and what you can do to help your family and restore your reputation in society.
Yeah. And so a little bit about yourself, because you have a great background as well that's kind of like positioned you towards really being a great, advocate and a role model for them.
Well, I think that God uses broken women to help broken women. And unless you've been through circumstances and unless you've walked the walk, they don't really trust you. I think that that's part of what draws them to us, is that we're a group of women who've been through the same situations. So they know it's not a hype or some kind of sales pitch or a commercial. We're not charging them. Basically, the way we get paid when it happens is through contracts with nonprofits. So we'll go into the nonprofit and train the women. For the women, it's free of charge. And due to COVID, there have been no contracts. So we're just on a wing and a prayer and whatever we have from our own pockets to help them get their cosmetics and everything else. So they know there's a trust level because we've walked the walk. There's nothing that we're taking from them or gaining from this except to the great feeling of being the hands and feet of Jesus.
Yeah. When you approach women and you give them this concept and you give them the opportunity to say, listen, here's a way that you may be able to successfully transition from where you've been to where you really need to go. Talk to us about that conversation and how receptive are women, because you're talking about people who are coming out of certain environments. Sometimes it can be a criminal justice environment. Sometimes it can be foster care. Sometimes it can even be, they've been through domestic violence. Give us, what's that response from women when you give them an alternative to their situation?
It's initially skeptical, which I understand. Why would they not be? Because like you said, especially people who are coming out of incarceration or an abusive relationship where they've been manipulated to and lied to. But it's when I share my testimony and I say, look, I was one of you and I started over in 2016 and this is my life now. That's where the credibility comes in. And the fact that I'm transparent and I open up to them is what allows them to trust me, because you can't be standoffish and you can't approach them from a position of dictatorship. And this is what you're going to do with your life. You approach them with love, compassion, and empathy. Empathy is really my gift. And because I have been there, it's easy for me to feel what they're going through. And that's what builds a slow trust.
Yeah. What was the turning point for you to say, listen, you know what? I want to be able to do this for women, given the fact that I've had my own personal experience. I want to make sure that I can help others through theirs.
The turning point is that I, too, was having a difficult time finding employment. I was having a difficult time with housing. And it was actually someone who I met. Her name is Mary Kay Holmes, and she has written a book called Outliving the Labels. And we had a brief Zoom conversation, probably shorter than this. And she said, you're putting so much effort into helping women on different levels and capacities. Why don't you just do this full time? She said, just, have the courage, go out there and lead others because you have what it takes. And I took it as, God spoke through her, and this is something I needed to do. And I love people. I have a passion for the hurting. Like what's going on in this world right now has me heartbroken with everything. So if we can spread a little love, that's what we have to do.
And for women right now who may be watching and saying, listen, this sounds something like I want to be able to connect myself with, what's the process and how do they get involved?
They just call me. It's 646-698-1656. I prefer text messages because it's just a little easier for me on a busy day to get back, but I will call them back right away.
Yeah. And so, starting when? Give us the dates of when the next things will begin.
September 25th is the branding of our own cosmetics company, and that's when we will be able to hire 7 trauma-impacted mothers and daughters on this journey.
Excited?
Very.
And what do you think in the end will really come of the experience, or what I should say, are you hoping will come at the end of this experience of having these women with you?
I think that we're going to start a movement and we're going to help other women. And then once, it's going to be like a domino effect. I'll help these 7, they'll go on and like Pay It Forward. If you remember, that was one of my favorite movies. And they'll do it for somebody else and somebody else. And we're going to touch a lot of people, especially in this area. I'm in the Bronx. I'm in the East Bronx, but I worked in the South Bronx at a church for a long time. And this is a community that needs it. So we're going to touch lives out here.
Yeah.
Pandemic or not.
Well, the fact is a lot of people out there really hurting and looking for assistance, and hopefully you'll be able to bridge that gap for a lot of people. Liliana, Maria, thank you so much for being with us here on Open. It's been great having you, and thank you for the work that you're doing in empowering women.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate your time.
All righty. Now, listen, if you want more information, don't hesitate to go to the website, beautyfortheashes.org. All right. Don't go anywhere. We do have more show coming up with us. We'll be right back in a few.
When taking public transportation, don't touch your phone. Carry hand sanitizer and use it immediately upon leaving the bus or train. Avoid touching your face. If someone is coughing or sneezing, move away. Wash your hands with soap and water as soon as possible. Limit contact with poles. If possible, avoid rush hour. Don't eat or drink on public transportation. Keep your bag off the floor or other surfaces. Avoid directly touching turnstiles. Stay up to date with the latest from your local health department and CDC.
And welcome back to the show. Facing chronic health issues and isolation, the frail aged are particularly vulnerable to heat stroke, heat exhaustion, as well as dehydration. Now, CityMeals is encouraging all New Yorkers to check in on their frail aged neighbors during this week's dangerously high temperatures. CityMeals on Wheels has definitely provided continuous lifeline of nourishing meals and vital companionship to New York City's homebound elderly population. And joining me now to share more details is the Associate Executive Director and Chief Program Officer at CityMeals on Wheels, Rachel Sherrow. And thank you so much for being with us, Rachel.
Thank you for having me.
You deal with the vulnerable and really at a most vulnerable time right now, the midst of a pandemic, and then also a heat wave. Give us a little bit about, how CityMeals on Wheels is really trying to help get involved.
Sure. I appreciate, again, having me on here and highlighting everything that is going on with this vulnerable population. And as you noted, we're in the middle of a pandemic and now a heat wave, compounding things for our vulnerable neighbors. The way we check in is we're delivering every day. We are making phone calls to folks. We're making sure that when we're delivering those meals or just visiting with them, that we feel either there's air conditioning on or there's a fan. We're making sure that they're comfortable temperature-wise, making sure they have enough water. Hydration is so important, and reminding them to drink is so important, and making sure that they feel comfortable in their own homes. There are cooling centers out there. People are a little more fearful these days because of the Delta variant to go out to stay cool. So we're making sure that they have what they need in their homes.
Yeah. And talk to us, because you're saying that you go out, you'll basically make some wellness calls and just check and see how people are doing. For the average person who may have an elderly person at home, how can we do the same thing that you're doing, asking those right questions? What are some of the right questions we should be asking?
Thank you. Knocking on their door, staying 6 feet apart, wearing a mask, just checking in, making sure they seem okay physically, reminding them to drink water. Anybody who has relatives, making sure they're doing the same, making sure they're comfortable, and understanding that at a certain point, if somebody is not feeling comfortable, what to do, calling 911, making sure that they get the help that they need so that they aren't compromised.
Yeah. And so for people who are CityMeals on Wheels, I know that you've got a lot of volunteers that are out there. Talk to us about how your program rolls out in meeting these needs.
Sure. We have been incredibly lucky with having over 20,000 New Yorkers help throughout this pandemic, and certainly now with the heat wave, going out, delivering meals, doing the wellness calls, checking in with our neighbors all throughout the city, all 5 boroughs. And I think we've had over 36,000 hours of this work being done over the past year. And certainly over the summer, as you've mentioned, things get a little hotter. So we have to make sure that we're checking in a different way and making sure that the needs are being met. We have delivered water to folks with their meals and encourage them to drink. You know, water drinking is not very popular among older folks. It's more popular among young kids who are used to doing it on a regular basis. We need to make sure that for every coffee being consumed or soda, that they're drinking water as well.
Yeah, the numbers are really staggering. And when I say staggering, I'm staggering and stunning. When we look at what you do, over 3 million meals have been served by CityMeals this year. Talk to us about that number, because when we look at the numbers, we do see an increased demand, particularly during COVID.
Sure. Before COVID, we were delivering about 2 million meals a year to about 17,500, 18,000 recipients around the city. At the height of the pandemic last spring, we were serving to about 21,000 homebound older adults, in addition to about 25,000 folks who used to be able to venture out to senior centers. Since senior centers have reopened and things have gotten a little bit better in the city, we are now serving about 20,000 on a regular basis daily, and have delivered almost twice as many meals, about between 3 and 4 million, because of the pandemic.
Yeah. And when we talk about, you know, these meals, they take volunteers to get there. I know that you've been having an increase in terms of getting the meals out, but I know that you've also had to have an increase in terms of needs for volunteers. Talk to us about your volunteers, and if there's somebody watching right now, how can they play a part in that?
Absolutely. Go to our website at any time, citymeals.org, and you can volunteer with us. We love having people help us out, whether it's somebody who's comfortable leaving their homes and actually delivering a meal, or staying in their homes and making these wellness calls. We have been incredibly lucky, as I said, to have folks who, even in the beginning, the height of the pandemic, to come out and risk their own safety to make sure that folks were getting food in their homes when everything was shut down. We work with kids, we work with older adults, people who weren't able to work during the pandemic, folks who had a little more time because they were working from home. We really have a variety of people, but we're always looking for volunteers. We really rely on them, and they've been such a huge support of everything we've been doing over the past year.
Now, if you told me 1 meal, 100 meals, 1,000 meals, maybe 10,000 meals, you know, I can pretty much understand and navigate. How are you able to navigate a 1 million increase when it comes to being these deliverables and meeting people's needs?
Sure. Well, it's not so easy, but you know, we have staff, we have folks who are dedicated employees around the city who have shown up, who have been there to deliver every day, and again, take their own risk in making sure that they're doing this, and volunteers showing up every day. Sometimes we're delivering more than 1 meal a day to make sure that if we're not able to get back the next day, we know they have food, or we're delivering them 3 meals at a time. Some of our extra food to those who are a little more vulnerable, maybe used to rely on family members or friends who aren't able to do it now. Or folks who are able to get out, like I said, to senior centers, or maybe to the local food pantry that they can no longer go out to.
Yeah. Again, we start off this segment talking about the work that you've been doing with the elderly, particularly during the height of this heat season. Winter is one thing, but summer can be a totally different beast when it comes to learning how to navigate that. And for our elderly and our homebound population, we know that a lot of them are really struggling and trying to lack sufficient needs. And so for your organization to be able to actually not just serve food, but also do wellness checks, what do you feel that does for in the life of that senior and in the life of that family?
Well, what we do know just from getting feedback from our meal recipients is just the check-in is so important, so that they know and they feel that somebody is looking out for them. They're not forgotten. somebody is trying to make sure that they're okay. And that means such a world of difference. And it's a reminder for them. Yes, turn on the air conditioner if they have one. Yes, turn on the fan, or let us know you don't. And there are city, there is the ability for the city to help get some things to our older homebound to make sure they have them in place, and we can connect them. We can make the referrals for them. And that's what's so important, to know that there's a need and then be able to help them.
Yeah, you've been doing some great work, but tell me, what has been some of the biggest challenges that you've actually faced during this whole time?
That we're all going through it together. It's not just one population or another. We're all in it together. So it's, it can be a struggle, whether it's folks afraid to take the train just to get to work in order to deliver those meals, or food being delivered late because there are issues with vendors or contractors, or just the idea that people are burnt out. People are living their own in their own pandemic and yet being selfless and helping others. It's been a real struggle, I think, as a city, a city doing this, and that the folks that we're serving are the most vulnerable of that. And we just want to make sure they're not forgotten. So there's a lot of self-care that we have to make sure that our volunteers and our staff are doing to make sure that they're able to then help those who need it the most.
Do you have any prediction or projection, I should say, as you get ready to turn towards the fall? I mean, I love the fact we're in the summer, but truth of the matter is fall is coming upon us. So any predictions or projections as you look forward towards the fall?
The only projections, we have is obviously we're watching everything that's happening with the new variant and making sure that we have food on hand, not only in our warehouse in the Bronx, where we have a storage of emergency meals, but also that our recipients have that. So delivering a little extra for those who are most at risk, and for those who maybe have something, giving them something as well, so that they don't have to be concerned if there's a day that there's not a delivery or if things shut down again. We just want to make sure that they have what they need on hand and that they're not concerned or worried about it.
Rachel, I want to thank you so much. CityMeals doing a great job. As I told our viewers earlier, over 3 million meals served this year, and people do have the opportunity to come on and be a volunteer as the elderly and the homebound are being looked after. Rachel, thanks again for joining us here on Open.
Thank you again for having us.
All righty. Well, we want to let you know that if you want more information, we encourage you to visit them at citymeals.org and then follow them on Instagram and Twitter at CityMeals. Well, we come to the end of our show today. I want to thank all of our guests for joining us, but most of all, I want to thank you, the viewer, for watching. And if you missed any part of today's show, you can catch the recablecast on Bronx's Channel 67. If you have Verizon Files, Channel 2133, or anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. And we want to also thank again our viewers who've been watching on Manhattan Neighborhood Network. It's Open is broadcast live simultaneously on the MNN channel. Now, if you want a brand new episode, you can catch that on Friday morning. My girl Irene Valentine will bring you the best with arts and entertainment. Until then, I am Daren Jaime saying take care, God bless, and most of all, keep this channel wide open.